Right. This is the video. I want to talk about the situation in Zimbabwe. This video is about talking about the situation in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe this year is going towards an election in August. Okay. The elections in Zimbabwe. These elections are nothing to do. And the elections we are going to have in Zimbabwe is nothing to do with the ZANU PF, Mnangagwa's party. These elections are about the ZANU PF and its ZEC counterpart against the Zimbabweans home and abroad. For the people in Zimbabwe, you need to get rid of ZANU PF. One thing you need to understand as the people in Zimbabwe is that ZANU PF is not going to develop Zimbabwe. ZANU PF is not the future of Zimbabwe. You need to replace these guys. I don't care what, look, I don't care what a ZANU PF person does. You need to remove ZANU PF. ZANU PF is not a party. It's almost like a colonial rule. ZANU PF is nothing but a party which has at the moment hijacked the progress of Zimbabwe. ZANU PF is not even a party. It's actually it's almost a cabal or a cult which has hijacked Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe at this moment is under hijacked by the ZANU PF and its caliphate. I would say to the people in Zimbabwe this year, the elections are nothing to do with the any other party. The elections is about Zimbabwean people versus ZANU PF. This is what it is, and the people who represent the person who represented Zimbabwean people is Nelson Chamisa. There is no any other leader in Zimbabwe, especially ZANU PF. I don't care. ZANU PF, you already know that ZANU PF is not a party. It's almost like a cabal which is involved, which has been involved since it came to power in 1980. For the people in Zimbabwe, you are not going to develop Zimbabwe under ZANU PF. There is no progress or future of your people, of your children and your grandchildren under a ZANU PF person. You must reject anything a ZANU PF person says. I don't care about a ZANU PF person. Anybody who's ZANU PF, to down with that person. I'm saying this to Zimbabweans that the people you call ZANU PF are not representing you. They represent themselves. ZANU PF is fighting tooth and nail for them to stay in power. Not only stay in power for the progress of Zimbabwe, to stay in power for themselves. Remember, ZANU PF is not about the progress of Zimbabwe. No. They are arresting people. Look at what's going on to Zimbabwe today. Zimbabwe lost nearly 6.5, nearly 7 million Zimbabweans now lives abroad. They suffer in many countries. All this is a result of ZANU PF. Remember, colonialism is much better than a ZANU PF. I'm going to say this. Colonialism was better than a ZANU PF. A ZANU PF is even worse. There is no party in Zimbabwe is worse than ZANU PF. Remember, I look at ZANU PF and I look at the suffering of what people of Zimbabwe are going through in South Africa, in Botswana, in Namibia, and in many other countries. All this would have never happened without the ZANU PF. If you look at the damage ZANU PF has done, at the moment, 98.8% unemployment. 98% unemployment. Not only that, if you put a wrong leader, the wrong leader affects the markets. They also affect the country. And the wrong leader means these people who are ZANU PF. ZANU PF has never won election through a freedom or democracy. They've never won. They know they will lose. ZANU PF is well aware that a real democratic nation of Zimbabwe, ZANU PF has no chance of winning in a democratic system. If you look at how much they've been terrorizing a lot of Zimbabwean people in the rural areas and many other parts, arresting opposition party, what do you think of a ZANU PF like that? If you are a person living in Zimbabwe today, what do you think is going to be the future of you being ruled by people you already know have never won a free and fair election? ZANU PF is well aware that in a free and fair election, they have no chance of winning. They know this. They know in a free and fair election, they'll know there's no chance of ZANU PF winning. They know this. For anybody in Zimbabwe to still chanting about ZANU PF by now, knowing how much destruction they have caused to the country, to Zimbabwe, to the people of Zimbabwe, there is no way a person today would even think about ZANU PF. The only thing they preach is about what about the Chimujibas, the this and this, only giving you what the poems and stories of long time ago just to keep you entertained. Giving Zimbabwean people stories about war and the mujibas and this and that doesn't mean anything to a modern person living today. It doesn't mean anything. It's not going to put food on your table. It's not going to develop the country. And Zimbabwe as a nation is not going to enjoy its freedom. Zimbabwe in 1980, they win the country and they lost its freedom. Zimbabwe came under a different dictatorship of ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF is nothing but a dictatorship. You understand me? There was, in fact, Zimbabwe in dictatorship of ZANU-PF and Mnangagwa is much worse than the colonial rule. During colonial rule, not even people, less than 1,000 people left the country, and all of those people came back. Now Zimbabwe lost 7 million Zimbabwean children are living abroad, suffering. All this because of ZANU-PF person. None of these people suffered like this during the colonial rule. Remember, ZANU-PF was handed over a country. They didn't fight to win. No, they didn't fight to win during 1980s. Remember, ZANU-PF was handed over the country of Zimbabwe. They didn't fight. If you look at Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe's country was handed over through the Lancaster House. It was handed over. It was a transition from the colonial rule to Robert Mugabe back in 1980. They didn't win. That's why Zimbabwe was not completely destroyed, like the cities were not touched. Both Harare, Bulawayo, Gweru, and many other Zimbabwean cities were never touched. A true war, all those things would be destroyed. So Zimbabwe was saved. Most of the war was fought in the rural areas to keep the country going. It's same thing with South Africa today. South Africa is not in a war. If you look at it, there was a transitional to go to the ANC. You understand? A true war, there will be nothing left. A true war, it will leave a leader to start afresh from zero. Like what they call the country of Rwanda, what they call the country of Kagame, in which there was nothing left. Robert Mugabe was handed over a functional country. This is why you should never ever waste time listening to this ZANU-PF giving you about the mujibas, the story about liberation struggle. Like you never fought it, or you were handed over a functioning state. Many people in Zimbabwe are not aware that Robert Mugabe was given $1 by Ian Smith in 1980. He was given a functioning state with its currency, with the business operating, with schools operating, with the businesses operating. He was handed over a functioning state. So stop talking about how you fought the country. And ZANU-PF never introduced anything. They just inherited a functioning state. Imagine if both Bulawayo and Harare and all the cities were destroyed and nothing left, and the only thing you were given was a jungle in 1980. Robert Mugabe would have never lasted 6 years. He would have never lasted. Number one, he would have no money, no banks, like many other North African countries, especially the African countries like Chad, Malawi, and many other North African countries which are unstable, in Sudan and many other, North African countries, including Nigeria and many other parts of African countries, of which, if you look at them, most of them, they did not have a functioning system when they were left after the colonial rule. But Zimbabwe never faced that. Zimbabwe had everything. It had functioning schools, functioning hospitals, functioning businesses, functioning roads, railway, electricity, sewage, water. Everything was functioning. Nothing was destroyed. You understand me? This is why you should never ever listen to this ZANU-PF preaching lies about how you fought the war. You didn't fight the war. The war was, you were handed over in 1980. You went to Lancaster House, and there was a transition from the colonial government to the to Robert Mugabe's government in 1980. But after that, what did Robert Mugabe did? He removed freedom and ruled through a dictatorship. You understand? He was never opposed. If you look at Robert Mugabe from 1980 to pretty much 2000, he was never opposed by anybody. Pretty much he ruled Zimbabwe as a dictatorship. But many people accepted this because it was stable. But now that people are demanding real freedom and real things of that nature, and these are the only things which will liberate Zimbabweans. We need to live in a country as free like South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, in which opposition parties are free to demonstrate any way they are. Remember, anyone with the interest of the country must be free to demonstrate any way they are. Free to gather, free to have meetings in any way or form. Remember, the purpose of opposition parties is to keep the ruling government on check. That's why opposition parties are very important. You can look at any country which is powerful, countries like in many European countries and in many Western countries, like including America, they all have got powerful opposition parties. And both opposition parties and the ruling party, both of them are powerful enough. No one has got complete power to do what they like in these countries, which is why these countries are classified as stable, and their markets is stable, and their money is very strong, because they've got political systems which are trusted by the international community, political systems which are trusted by the businesses. That's not the case if you look at Zimbabwe. And a lot of people in Zimbabwe needs to understand the situation you have in Zimbabwe today is about removing the party of ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF is the only country, is the only party which has hijacked the process of Zimbabwe. I don't care how much bribe they'll give you. Even if a ZANU-PF person give me Harare, the entire Harare as a city to be mine, I'll still never vote as ZANU-PF. Because you need to understand, what does ZANU-PF represent? They don't represent the country's interest. They represent themselves. The reason why they fought tooth and nail to stay in power is because of their being in leadership is the only position they enjoy, looting the country's resources, whilst millions of people suffer. They don't care. They've never cared since 1980. ZANU-PF never offered freedom to Zimbabwe. They just did not have a powerful opposition. That's all. They never had. Zimbabwe won independence and lost freedom. If you look at today, the freedom of Zimbabwean people in South Africa, in Namibia, in many of these countries, you would have never been safe in those countries if without the opposition party. If you look at the Zimbabweans in South Africa today, you are there in South Africa thanks to Julius Malema, another opposition party. You understand me? Without Julius Malema, a lot of Zimbabweans would have been kicked out in South Africa. Many people are not aware, especially next year. You need to understand, without fixing Zimbabwe, a lot of Zimbabweans need to understand that a lot of you Zimbabweans in South Africa are going to be kicked out in next year. Next year, there's going to be elections in South Africa. You understand me? And a lot of people might use the so-called, immigration thing to get, we're going to get rid of these people, we're going to get rid of foreigners, we're going to get rid of foreigners. That's the only thing they can use to get rid of people. And a lot of Zimbabweans are going to be affected in South Africa. So the only opportunity you have in Zimbabwe today is to remove ZANU-PF. You understand? The ZANU-PF must go. You understand? No matter what, at this moment, we have reached a situation where there is no future under ZANU-PF. 100%. Zimbabwe is no future under a ZANU-PF person. 100%. There's not going to be a future. These people are there for themselves. You can see the gold mafia. It was not only even the gold mafia. They've been looting resources since 1980. Every person in ZANU-PF is fighting for them to loot the resources of the state. That's where they are. The ZANU-PF people. That's all of them. They're not only corrupt, they know they're corrupt. It's not only that it's not a discussion that ZANU-PF is corrupt. They know that people don't want them. A lot of ZANU-PF people, they know that the people don't want it. At the moment, they're already planning to rig. By now, they should have given all the opposition parties freedom to move, freedom to be wherever they are, but that's not the case. Why? They know they have no chances of winning. You understand me? So at the moment, they're planning to rig election as we speak, especially the fact that elections will be happening in August, where a lot of the world eyes will be looking at South Africa, which is having the BRICS summit. So a lot of people will be looking at South Africa because it's going to have the BRICS summit. But a lot of Zimbabweans need to understand that this ZANU-PF is already planning. They know that they have no chance of winning in a free and fair. And a lot of people, especially Zimbabwe, who live abroad in countries like South Africa, you need to understand that the only reason why you live in those countries is because those countries are democratic, which is what is being denied to you in our own country like Zimbabwe. You understand me? And I don't care what a ZANU-PF person gives to you. You must never ever vote for a ZANU-PF. You want a future of Zimbabwe to enjoy your country, you have to remove any person who's ZANU-PF. Do not support ZANU-PF. The only party which is going to develop Zimbabwe and give freedom to all the Zimbabwean people is going to be the party of Nelson Chamisa, the CCC. There is no future without CCC in Zimbabwe. You understand me? This is the only young man who's going to build Zimbabwe. This is the only man who's going to free, not only to build, who's going to free Zimbabwe. He's going to bring investors. At the moment, there are thousands of investors today who are locked outside, who cannot invest in a regime they know is going to be, one day is going to be removed. One day people will rise against this regime, and everybody is well aware of the situation in Zimbabwe. It has been known since Robert Mugabe. It's still the same party. I was shocked when this man, Nelson, who's this man who's called Mnangagwa, who's this, whatever, Mnangagwa. This man is not even a leader. This person is the worst dictator we've ever had. He's far much worse than Robert Mugabe. From the day one since he came in power, he was never voted for. He rigged elections to be there. So he is well aware that he is in power simply at the barrel of a gun and his military. He's well aware of it. What do you think a person who has never voted in Zimbabwe, being in power, what do you think they're going to do? A person who's well aware that he's in power simply because at the barrel of a gun and the so-called soldiers and the rigging of elections. That's the only reason Mnangagwa is in power. He's not in power because Zimbabweans voted for him. Absolutely not. There's no way you would put Robert Mnangagwa knowing that he's the same guy with the Robert Mugabe and it's the same party. In order for Zimbabwe to win, the party is to be completely more removed. ZANU-PF is to completely step aside. It cannot be the same corrupt people running the country. It's not going to run like that. Zimbabwe cannot progress like that. Zimbabwe needs a new beginning, and a new future for Zimbabwe comes through only Nelson Chamisa. Remember, if you put a wrong leaders will affect the markets. That means expensive food, that means no hospitals, no functioning electricity, water, sewage. All this cannot be done with a wrong leadership. The Zimbabwe has got wrong leadership of ZANU-PF. You understand? And they know at this point it's not about talking about ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF is to go. You understand? At this moment it's over talking about election. It's about ZANU-PF versus Zimbabweans home and abroad. These elections are about ZANU-PF versus Zimbabweans home and abroad. And we need to remove the ZANU-PF completely. These people are nothing but criminals and thugs. I will never ever vote for a ZANU-PF regardless. I don't care about whatever stories they talk about, the Mujibas, liberation struggle. That doesn't bring food to your table. It's all lies. You were handed over a functioning state. Remember, in 1980, Zimbabwe, under Robert Mugabe, was handed over a currency called the Zimbabwean dollar, which is ZANU-PF used since 1980. A currency which was so powerful that it was 1-to-1 with the United States. 1-to-1. He was handed over. You understand? Do you think if the colonial government which ruled of Ian Smith back then in 1980 wanted to Robert Mugabe to suffer, do you think they could have removed? They could have removed the Zimbabwean dollar and say, use your own. They could have removed, but they didn't. They handed over a functioning state and say, we need to give Zimbabwe a new beginning. The same thing with South Africa. South Africa inherited from the apartheid, a rand. They were never given to say, well, introduce your own currency. They didn't do that. So when you destroy your country by yourself, you are to blame. Remember, you were handed over a functioning state. You understand? Robert Mugabe was given a function. He was given a dollar, which was functioning, economy, which was functioning, thousands of business, over 750,000 businesses functioning in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe had no unemployment. It was fully employed. You understand me? Functioning schools, functioning hospital, functioning economy, functioning finance. The dollar sign, which was very powerful. It was handed over to Robert Mugabe to continue use. Today they talk about, how I fought the war. Oh, look at the Mujibas. Nobody, those you people who you call Mujibas in 1980 were earning currency, the Zim dollar, which was Ian Smith's Zim dollar, which was introduced by Ian Smith. Nothing to do with Robert Mugabe, nothing to do with ZANU-PF. Imagine if everything was removed and Robert Mugabe was told to introduce his own currency. What were you going to call it? What were you going to call it? Zim Kwacha, Zim what? What were you going to call it? And what was going to be the value? Millions of people in Zimbabwe would have suffered in 1980, 1985, 1986, 1987. They would have suffered to the extent that Robert Mugabe would have never ruled in Zimbabwe for even 5 years. He would have been in trouble. But that never happened because he was handed over. Remember, Zimbabwe was handed over in 1980 to Robert Mugabe. He didn't fight completely a war because the cities were spared. Harare, Bulawayo, Gweru, Mkwekwe, Maswingo and all these other countries, they were spared. Wars were fought usually in rural areas to spare the country. That's why Robert Mugabe had a chance to rule a country which had roads, sewage system which working, electricity, water, everything, and farms. And because of the corruption within the ZANU-PF knew they had no interest. They wanted to turn Zimbabwe to be like a North Korea, so that they rule by themselves. You know what I'm saying? But as you're well aware, everything which started has got at the beginning. Robert Mugabe should have never went too far, still campaigning. That man should have been a father Zimbabwe and they let go the youngster to take. This is what affects a lot of African leadership. When they come in power, especially this man, he came in power by rigging election. And now he's doing the same thing Robert Mugabe did. You understand? If you see a person, how can a person be like 92, 93 and still talking about the future? And this is why a lot of Africans have to think, when a person you see, this person is too old to be even thinking, look at Mnangagwa. What do you think Mnangagwa will do to develop Zimbabwe? And already they're in power, 98% unemployment. What do you think these people, the same people, are going to be good? Do you really think a person who he's already in power, the country is suffering, and you keep him, knowing this person is... If you look at what's going on in Zimbabwe today, you need to understand that enough is enough. These elections are about removing ZANU-PF for good. You understand? It's nothing to do with the joking. All the jokes aside, you need to vote for CCC of Nelson Chamisa as a president. This will... Millions of people in the diaspora of Zimbabwe will come to Zimbabwe. As long as Nelson Chamisa is in power, millions of Zimbabweans will come to Zimbabwe. They will know, now we've got a future. Now we've got a leader which is trusted by the international community. Now we've got a leader which is trusted by the markets. And the dollar will be introduced, which is going to be strong because it's backed by the leaders which are trusted, not dictatorship. Dictatorship makes the food expensive because they're not trusted. They're not trusted by the markets. They're not wanted by the people. And the country doesn't want them. That's why dictators will never rule. Look at North Korea. Who wants to live in North Korea? Who wants to live in a dictatorship? At the moment, Mnangagwa, this guy, Emerson Mnangagwa, he's the worst dictator we've ever had. You understand? He was never voted. Forget, he was never voted. He's the worst dictator we've ever had. And people in Zimbabwe need to understand, Zimbabwe doesn't have a future with the ZANU-PF at all. We need to bring a leader who's going to bring millions of people of Zimbabwean citizens abroad to come back and invest. They cannot come to invest with Mnangagwa. It's not going to happen. Mnangagwa talks about, business as usual, business. He doesn't mean it. It's the propaganda campaign, the lies they spread to uneducated people. When deep down they know they're in power simply to loot the resources because they're well away. Today they're opening foreign accounts in Saudi Arabia. How can a country which without a functioning hospital and you're busy buying Rolls Royces and Bugattis and things like that nature? And you look at their mindset when they don't have a functioning hospital, functioning schools, and nurses and doctors are not being paid, and these ZANU-PF officials are buying what they call they're buying these Rolls Royces abroad, Bugattis, these expensive cars, with the country's looting the country's resources. Today there is the gold mafia, which has been going on since Mnangagwa. This is why the ZANU-PF are fighting tooth and nail, because they are well aware that the Zimbabweans might punish them when they take power with our leader, our trusted future leader, Nelson Chamisa, the future of Zimbabwe. Now, please, Zimbabweans, domestic, don't waste your time voting for Mnangagwa. It's a wasting of time. If you give me a monkey or a baboon versus Emerson Mnangagwa, I'll vote for a baboon. A donkey versus Emerson Mnangagwa, I'll vote for a donkey. A goat versus Emerson Mnangagwa, I'll vote for a goat. A chicken versus Emerson Mnangagwa, I'll vote for a chicken. A dog versus Emerson Mnangagwa, I'll vote for a dog. You understand me? That's how bad Emerson Mnangagwa is. This guy is illiterate. He's not even educated. He's the worst dictator Zimbabwe has ever had. If you look at in 2002, in the year 2000, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and many other countries, they could have even created a SADC currency. But it cannot happen when Zimbabwe is stifling the progress of SADC. If you look at South Africa, democracy. Namibia, democracy. Botswana, democracy. Zimbabwe is the only SADC nation stuck up with its dictatorship. It's actually disturbing the progress of the SADC region. By now, we could be using the same currency. Zimbabwe, South Africa, Botswana, and Namibia. They could have a strong currency, but strong currency need what? Strong currencies need stable countries, democratic leaders which are voted. Those are the only things which stabilize the markets and stabilize the currency. Unstable dictatorship like Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is the only country which is stifling the progress of the SADC region at the moment. It's Zimbabwe under this ZANU-PF, and we need to remove the ZANU-PF for good. I don't care how many bribes they're doing in the rural areas. You look, if Zimbabweans who live in the rural areas, stop being fed with maize and rice, a packet of rice. When the voting situation is over, you never see these people again. They've been playing these tactics since Robert Mugabe. We already know their rigging mentality they do in the rural areas, scaring the old grandmothers and grandpas in the rural areas for votes. Do not vote for a ZANU-PF. I don't care what. Voting for a ZANU-PF is your wasting of time. You understand me? Voting for a ZANU-PF is equivalent to fetching for a dead donkey. You understand me? Voting for a ZANU-PF is equivalent to waiting for a dead person who's buried, that are going to come and help you. Voting for a ZANU-PF is equivalent to looking for a dead dog. Looking for a dead dog, a dog which is dead and it's a skeleton. And you are still looking for it, looking for a dog, and say, well, where is my dog? I want to hunt, not knowing the dog you are looking for is already a skeleton. That's what you are for. That's what you are dealing with. You understand what I'm saying to you? And please, people in Zimbabwe, vote for the future of Zimbabwe. I don't care how much bribes the ZANU-PF people will do. I don't care. Even today, they're really planning by any means to rig the election. They're planning to rig the election as we speak. They've got to forge the ballot boxes in all the rural areas, forged, but they've already planted their people. And ZEC stand for ZANU-PF Electoral Commission. And Zimbabwe need an ICE. Zimbabwe need an independent electoral commission. You understand me? At the moment, we've got a ZEC which stands for ZANU-PF Electoral Commission. You know what I'm saying? Which is wrong. The ZEC is not an independent. We already know that ZEC stands for ZANU-PF. You understand me? And the ZEC is another institution of ZANU-PF. You understand me? These people they are well aware that one day they're going to be removed in power, and they're going to be made to be answerable for what they've done to the country of Zimbabwe. The destruction these people have done. I'm even shocked to find a person. Look, it's not the time now for even thinking about a ZANU-PF. No. It's over for these people. They know it's over. And for people in Zimbabwe, please don't waste your time voting for ZANU-PF. Please do not waste your time listening to these chimujibas, all this wasting of time. Now, look at 7 million of your citizens are abroad. Who do you think they're working for? The companies of the Zimbabwean people. The companies which used to be in Zimbabwe, they're now in South Africa, Namibia, and other countries. And the Zimbabwean children followed those companies. You remove ZANU-PF, Zimbabwe is going to be the most exciting nation without ZANU-PF. It is going to be the most loved nation without ZANU-PF. It is going to bring all the children of Zimbabwe from South Africa, from the diaspora, to come and redevelop our country. But we need a democratic leader. Zimbabweans cannot go to a place where they are being haunted by these evil ZANU-PF and its cabal of its war veterans and all these people who should understand that the Zimbabweans have had enough. At this point, it's nothing to do with the ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF is well out. It's not a party now. It's no longer a party. It's game over for them. They know it's over. So I like to say this to ZANU-PF, to the people of Zimbabwe. Please don't waste your time voting for ZANU-PF. Please do not waste your time voting for ZANU-PF. Voting for Mnangagwa is equivalent to voting for a baboon and hope a baboon is going to develop your country. We need to stop wasting our time. You need to vote for Nelson Chamisa. The future of Zimbabwe is in the hands of Nelson Chamisa, CCC. I don't care. Don't waste your time. I don't care how many bribes a ZANU-PF person will throw to you. Never vote for a ZANU-PF. You want future of Zimbabwe, and you need to relieve the suffering of Zimbabweans, both domestic in Zimbabwe and abroad. We need to get rid of these people and restore the future of Zimbabwe by putting the power in the hands of Zimbabwe. At the moment, everything is under this cabal of ZANU-PF. It's a wasting of dictatorship of Mnangagwa, the worst dictator we've ever had. At the moment, the SADC region is suffering because of this dictatorship of ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe. You understand me? If you look at the SADC region of South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, was the safest region in Africa. Today, Zimbabwe is the only country in the SADC region which has ruined the stability of the SADC region. Ruined and destroyed the stability of the SADC region. All this because of ZANU-PF. All this, the suffering of the SADC region is because of ZANU-PF, of this Mnangagwa and Robert Mugabe party. And you Zimbabweans, please do not waste your time voting for ZANU-PF. You're wasting your time. I don't care how much bribes they give you, how much intimidation tactics they use. Do not waste your time when you're voting. Do not waste your time. Voting for a Mnangagwa is equivalent to voting for a baboon. Do not waste your time. Mnangagwa is not only, he's an uneducated, dangerous dictator who's not even educated. Slogans like, oh, business, let bygones be bygones, and oh, business, let's this, that, doesn't function when you know yourself you're not democratically elected. You're not wanted, you're a criminal, you're someone who belongs in jail, and you should not be in charge of Zimbabwe. You already know it, especially Mnangagwa. You already know that you're not supposed to. And that's why it affects the markets. That's why Zimbabwe cannot move forward, because it has got wrong leadership. You already know when a wrong leader is in power, the markets are affected. Things start rising. Goods start becoming expensive. Everything. Why? Because these people you put are not wanted by the markets. The market will respond to unwanted leaders negatively. You understand me? So if you're in Zimbabwe, needs to understand, when you put a wrong leader, that leader affects the markets, which is why Robert Mugabe, when he became a dictatorship in 2002, you know what I'm saying, by going after this guy who was Morgan Tsvangirai, he affected the markets and Zimbabwe lost its currency. Soon after he became a dictatorship, Zimbabwe's dollar started being affected in 2002. You understand me? And since then, never recovered, because we still have got the same evil party of ZANU-PF. So for people in Zimbabwe, please do not waste your time voting for ZANU-PF. You must vote for Nelson Chamisa of CCC in order to develop the country of Zimbabwe, in order to bring Zimbabwe's children from abroad to come and help him to rejuvenate, to redevelop the Zimbabwe. When we have got free institutions, free, our education becomes free, our hospital becomes free, and all these places will get investment. As many people will want to build our hospital, build new roads, build new electricity. This cannot happen as millions of our money is being looted by ZANU-PF people opening foreign accounts in Dubai because they're scared to hell. And they know that Zimbabwean people are well aware that they're looting the resources, they're looting the diamonds, the gold, all the resources of the country. Meanwhile, Zimbabwe's public infrastructure is crumbling, hospitals, schools, everything is crumbling down, the money. Yet the ZANU-PF criminals are opening foreign accounts in other countries. And you need to remove these guys. They're opening foreign accounts because they know that in Zimbabwe they're going to be hunted down. They cannot hide the money under. They are well aware. So please, people in Zimbabwe, do not waste your time voting for ZANU-PF. You need to vote for CCC of Nelson Chamisa, the only party which is going to develop Zimbabwe. CCC of Nelson Chamisa is the only party of the future of the children in Zimbabwe. It's the only party which is going to bring stability, investment of markets, roads, electricity. All these things will come. People will come to invest once they see there's a democratic party which is loved by people in Zimbabwe. Investment will come. Millions of people will come. Even Zimbabweans themselves will start investing in their country. But they cannot come under a ZANU-PF. So please get rid of ZANU-PF and put our leader, Nelson Chamisa. The Freedom Party of Zimbabwe is Nelson Chamisa, the CCC. So with that, I would say goodbye, and please subscribe to this video so we educate our people in Zimbabwe so that they move forward, informed, they become informed. ZANU-PF is not a party. You understand me? It's the enemy of Zimbabwe. It's worse than the colonial rule, worse than Rhodesia, worse than anything which ever existed. ZANU-PF is nothing but a colonial country it's a colonial party which is now hijacked much worse. Under Ian Smith and the colonial rule, nobody left Zimbabwe. Now half of the country left running away from ZANU-PF. Half of Zimbabweans left Zimbabwe. Why didn't they run away under Ian Smith? Because they were eating investment. They were not subjected to what it is today. Half of the opposition party has been locked. Half of the opposition party have been locked in prison with no trial. All this because of ZANU-PF. We need to remove these people. These people, you can tell how do you feel if a person like Julius Malema was locked? You think there will be freedom in South Africa if Julius Malema was in prison? Most people in Zimbabwe would have been thrown away because he's the only person who's defending the freedom of many foreigners in South Africa. And many people, it's because of the opposition party which functions. And in Zimbabwe, that is being denied. You understand? Having an opposition party which is functioning, that is being denied. You understand me? So please, people in Zimbabwe, vote for CCC of Nelson Chamisa. You understand me? Next year, there will be elections in South Africa. You understand me? If you don't remove the ZANU-PF, it will be worse for Zimbabweans in South Africa. So the best way is to remove the ZANU-PF so that we build a future. When our people in South Africa are removed from there, they come to a better country with Nelson Chamisa in charge. They will know that they're going to a place where there's future. So with that in mind, please, viva Nelson Chamisa, viva Nelson Chamisa. Viva the future of Zimbabwe is under Nelson Chamisa. These ZANU-PF criminals should go. ZANU-PF thugs should go. And Nelson Chamisa, the freedom fighter of Zimbabwe. Nelson Chamisa, the freedom fighter, the spirits of our people is in the hands of Nelson Chamisa, the freedom fighter of Zimbabwe. Please, God bless this young man of Nelson Chamisa. He is holding the future of Zimbabwean people, domestic and abroad. And remove this evil cabal of remove this evil cabal of Mnangagwa Emerson. Okay, Emerson Mnangagwa, the criminal dictator of ZANU-PF. And with that, thank you, Lord. Bless this young man, Nelson Chamisa, the freedom fighter of Zimbabwe, the freedom fighter of the people, the freedom fighter of the future of Zimbabwe, the freedom fighter of the true freedom of Zimbabwe. At the moment, we are being hijacked by this cabal of Emerson Mnangagwa. To hell with this satanist Emerson Mnangagwa. Thank you, Lord, for giving us Nelson Chamisa, the true fighter to liberate Zimbabwe. At the moment, Zimbabwe has never been liberated by ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF has hijacked Zimbabweans, and the person who's going to liberate Zimbabwe and give its freedom is going to be CCC of Nelson Chamisa. With that, thank you, Lord. Bless everybody, and God bless America. With that, thank you. Goodbye.